They forced a single drop of the Alpha King's blood past her lips, an execution disguised as justice. But instead of dying, Arwen's veins erupted with emerald fire so ancient it brought the most powerful wolf in the kingdom to its knees. And in that blinding moment, everyone realized the servant girl they meant to destroy was the one destined to rewrite every law they'd ever known. Welcome back to my channel, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy the story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Arwen Thorne had always been good at two things: scrubbing floors until they shone like glass and keeping her mouth shut. The first talent had kept her alive for 19 years in the Alpha King's palace. The second, well, that one had failed her spectacularly this morning. It started in the North Tower, where she'd been sent to polish the High Council's ceremonial goblets. The tower was always cold, even in summer, and the stone walls seemed to absorb sound. Arwen had learned to move quietly there, like a ghost among the shadows. She was elbow-deep in polish, humming softly to herself when she heard the voices. Eliminate the king himself. Arwen froze, her rags suspended over a golden goblet. You're certain the spell will work? That was Counselor Moravian's voice, sharp and nasal. The blood ritual is ancient. Once we silence his wolf, Selim Nybane will be nothing more than a man. Mortal. Killable. Her heart hammered against her ribs. They were plotting treason. Against the Alpha King. Against Selim Nybane, the most feared ruler in 5 kingdoms. She needed to leave. Now. Arwen set down the goblet with excruciating care, but her hands were shaking. The broom leaned against the wall behind her. She reached for it slowly, carefully, and knocked it over. The clatter echoed through the tower like a death knell. The voices stopped. Footsteps rushed toward her. Arwen ran. She made it 3 corridors before the guards caught her, their armored hands rough as they dragged her backward. She kicked and twisted, but they were twice her size and trained for combat. She was just a servant girl with skinned knees and calloused hands. Please, she gasped. I didn't hear anything. Too late for that, one guard muttered. They hauled her through the palace, past tapestries depicting ancient battles and glowing runestones embedded in the walls. Servants pressed themselves against the corridors, eyes wide, as Arwen was dragged toward the throne room. The great doors opened with a groan that sounded like a giant waking. The throne room was vast, lit by hundreds of floating orbs that cast everything in silver and shadow. At the far end, seated on a throne carved from black stone and wolf bone, was the Alpha King himself. Selim Nybane. Arwen had seen him from a distance before. Everyone had, but up close, he was devastating. Long white hair fell past his shoulders, braided with warrior cords and silver beads. His armor was black and etched with runes that glowed faint green, like captured starlight. His eyes were silver, cold and ancient, and they fixed on her with the intensity of a predator spotting prey. He radiated power. And danger. And something else that made the air around him hum. Arwen was thrown to her knees before him. The marble was cold and unforgiving. Your Majesty. Counselor Moravian stepped forward, his robes sweeping dramatically. This girl has committed treason. Arwen's head snapped up. That's not. A guard cuffed her across the face. Pain bloomed along her cheekbone. She was found eavesdropping on a private council meeting, Moravian continued smoothly. Clearly gathering information to sell to our enemies. That's ridiculous. Arwen spat blood onto the pristine marble. I was cleaning. You were the ones plotting. Enough. The Alpha King's voice was low, quiet, and it cut through the room like a blade. Everyone fell silent. His silver eyes studied her. Arwen felt pinned beneath that gaze, like a butterfly on a board. What is your name? He asked. Arwen Thorne, Your Majesty. And what did you hear, Arwen Thorne? She hesitated. If she told the truth, the council would kill her. If she lied, she'd be condemning the king. Before she could answer, Moravian interjected. It doesn't matter what she heard. The penalty for eavesdropping on the High Council is clear. She must face the blood decree. A murmur rippled through the assembled courtiers. Even the guards shifted uneasily. Arwen's stomach dropped. She knew the blood decree. Everyone did. It was an ancient punishment, written into law centuries ago. Anyone who tasted the Alpha King's blood without permission would die instantly, consumed by the wolf's fury. It was supposed to be a deterrent. No one had invoked it in decades. "She is a servant," the king said, his voice dangerously soft. "A child. You would kill her for sweeping the wrong room. Then prove her innocence," Moravian pressed, his lips curling into a smile. "One drop, Your Majesty. If she is truly innocent, the blood will know." Arwen looked between them, her pulse pounding in her ears. This was insane. The council wanted her dead because she'd overheard their treason, and they were using ancient law to do it. The king's jaw tightened. For a moment, something flickered in his silver eyes, anger, maybe, or regret, but then it was gone. He stood. The entire room seemed to shrink as he descended the throne steps. He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, each step deliberate. When he stopped before Arwen, she had to crane her neck to look up at him. He was holding a goblet. His blood, dark as wine and somehow alive, swirled inside it. "This is unnecessary," Selim said, but he wasn't looking at Arwen. He was staring at Moravian with something that bordered on contempt. "The law is the law, Your Majesty." The king's hand tightened around the goblet. Then he looked down at Arwen, and for just a second, his expression softened. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Before she could respond, the guards seized her again, forcing her head back. The goblet was pressed to her lips. "Please," Arwen choked out. The blood touched her tongue. Heat exploded through her mouth, searing and wild. It tasted like lightning and smoke and something ancient that had no name. And then, everything ignited. Arwen screamed as her veins lit up from the inside. Green light, brilliant, blinding, emerald fire, shot across her skin in wild patterns, racing up her arms, across her chest, down her legs. It was like her blood had turned to molten glass. The guards stumbled back, shouting. One of them fainted. "She's not dying," someone shrieked. No, she wasn't. She felt awake. More alive than she'd ever been. Like something buried deep in her bones had suddenly clawed its way to the surface, stretching and unfurling after centuries of sleep. The air around her cracked with power. Wind surged through the throne room, whipping her dark hair into a wild halo. Green fire coiled from her fingertips, dancing and crackling with barely restrained energy. Arwen pushed herself to her feet, staring at her glowing hands in shock. What is this?" Across the throne room, the Alpha King staggered backward. And then, gods above, his wolf appeared. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. A massive spectral wolf, silver and towering, materialized behind him. Its eyes glowed with ancient power. Its form rippled like moonlight on water. And it dropped to its knees. The wolf bowed to her. The entire throne room erupted into chaos. Courtiers screamed. Guards drew weapons. The High Council backed away, their faces pale with terror. "What does this mean?" Moravian shrieked, his composure shattered. The Alpha King stood frozen, his silver eyes wide. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper, but it carried through the room. "It means she is not an Omega." He took a step toward her, and Arwen saw something she never expected to see in the eyes of the most powerful man in 5 kingdoms. She is something older. Arwen looked down at her still glowing hands, then back at the massive wolf spirit kneeling before her. The green light pulsed in time with her heartbeat, and she could feel it now, the power humming through her veins, wild and hungry and ancient. "Older than what?" she asked, her voice shaking. "My broom?" But even as she said it, she felt the truth settling into her bones. Whatever the king's blood had awakened, it had been sleeping inside her all along. And now, standing in the throne room with emerald fire dancing across her skin and the Alpha King's wolf bowing at her feet, Arwen Thorne realized her life would never be the same. The servant girl who'd only wanted to stay invisible had just become the most visible person in the kingdom. And the High Council, she noted with grim satisfaction as she watched them scramble toward the exits, looked absolutely terrified. Good. The green light pulsed brighter, and Arwen felt her body responding to something she didn't understand. The marble floor beneath her feet cracked, spider-webbing outward in emerald-lit fissures. Every torch in the throne room flickered and turned green. The wolf spirits of the assembled court, faint, ghostly forms that normally hovered near their bonded warriors, whimpered and pressed low to the ground. All of them, bowing to her. Impossible, breathed someone from the crowd. Arwen turned, and the movement sent another ripple of power through the room. She could feel it now. The magic wasn't just in her veins. It was in the air around her, bending to her will, waiting for direction. Counselor Moravian recovered first, his face twisted with rage and fear. Seize her. Before she. Touch her and you die. The Alpha King's voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. He stood between Arwen and the council, his hand on the hilt of his sword. His spectral wolf had risen to its feet, still trembling, its massive head turned toward Arwen with something that looked almost like reverence. Your Majesty, Moravian sputtered, she is clearly a threat. That power, it's unnatural, forbidden. That power, Selim interrupted, his silver eyes never leaving Arwen, is older than your entire bloodline, Moravian. Older than this palace. Older than Wolfkind itself. He moved closer to Arwen, and she instinctively took a step back. The green fire around her hands flared protectively. The king stopped, raising his hands slowly. I won't hurt you. Everyone keeps saying that right before they try to kill me, Arwen shot back, her voice sharper than she intended. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Fair. Up close, she could see the runes on his armor more clearly. They were glowing now, responding to her power. And there was something else, a scent that made her head spin. Pine and smoke and winter storms. It shouldn't have been comforting, but somehow it was. What's happening to me? She whispered. I don't know yet. His voice was softer now, meant only for her. But I intend to find out. And I intend to keep you alive while I do. Why? His silver eyes met hers, and for a moment, the throne room and all its chaos faded away. Because my wolf has never bowed to anyone. Not in 800 years. And if he recognizes you as something worth kneeling for, then so do I. 800 years. Gods. He was ancient. Before Arwen could respond, Moravian's voice rang out again. This is madness. She must be eliminated before. Before what? Selim turned, and his voice dropped to something dangerous. Before she exposes the fact that you were plotting my assassination? The throne room went dead silent. Moravian's face drained of color. That's preposterous. Is it? The king's hand was still on his sword. Because a servant girl overheard something that made your entire council decide she needed to die. What exactly were you discussing that was worth invoking the blood decree? The other council members were backing toward the doors now, their faces pale. But Moravian stood his ground, his jaw tight with fury. We were discussing the security of the realm, he said through clenched teeth. Which includes eliminating threats. Like her. Arwen felt the power inside her respond to his words, coiling tighter, hotter. The green light flared. I'm not a threat, she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. I'm a servant who cleans floors and minds her own business. Or I was, until you decided I needed to die for doing my job. You don't understand what you are, Moravian hissed. What's inside you, it should have been buried forever. The prophecy. Enough. Selim's voice cracked like a whip. You will speak no more of prophecies or threats. You will return to your quarters and await my judgment. Your Majesty. Now. The council members fled, their robes sweeping behind them. But Moravian lingered at the doorway, his eyes fixed on Arwen with pure hatred. This isn't over, he said quietly. Then he was gone. The throne room slowly emptied as courtiers and guards filtered out, stealing glances at Arwen as they went. Within minutes, only a handful of people remained. The king, his beta, a scarred man with kind eyes, and 2 guards stationed at the doors. The green light around Arwen was finally starting to fade. She looked down at her hands, watching the glow recede back beneath her skin. She could still feel it there, humming quietly, waiting. What did he mean about a prophecy? She asked. Selim exchanged a glance with his beta before answering. There are old stories. Legends about a bloodline that predated wolves. The Thorborn Circle. Arwen's breath caught. My last name is Thorn. I know. He studied her carefully. Tell me, Arwen. What do you know about your parents? Nothing. I was left at the palace gates as an infant. The kitchen master raised me. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the power still warming her veins. I always assumed I was a bastard. Some lord's unwanted daughter. No. The king's voice was certain. You're something far more significant than that. His wolf moved closer, and Arwen tensed. But the massive spirit simply lowered its head, silver eyes gentle. Almost protective. He wants to know if you're all right, Selim said softly. You can tell what he's thinking? We're bonded. His thoughts are mine. He paused. He says your power feels like home. Like something he's been searching for his entire existence. Arwen reached out tentatively, her hand hovering near the wolf's muzzle. The moment her fingers brushed its spectral fur, warmth flooded through her. Not the searing heat of the awakening, but something gentler. A connection, ancient and true. The wolf made a sound, almost a purr, and pressed closer. Well, Arwen said weakly. At least someone's happy about this mess. The beta chuckled. I'm Ronan, by the way. Since we're apparently all bonded now. We're not bonded, Selim said quickly. Too quickly. Ronan's grin widened. Your wolf is currently nuzzling a servant girl like she's the most precious thing in the 5 kingdoms. I'd call that pretty bonded, Your Majesty. The king shot him a look that could have melted stone, but Arwen noticed the tips of his ears were turning red. Gods. The terrifying Alpha King was blushing. What happens now? Arwen asked, pulling her hand back from the wolf. Immediately, she missed the warmth. Selim's expression turned serious. Now, we figure out what you are and why the council is so desperate to kill you. Until then, you're under my protection. I can't stay in the palace. The council. The council answers to me. You'll be moved to the north wing. Private quarters, personal guards. His silver eyes held hers. And you'll train with me. Train. That power inside you, it's raw. Untamed. If you don't learn to control it, you could hurt yourself. Or others. Arwen thought about the cracked marble, the green fire, the way every wolf in the room had bowed. He was right. She was terrified of what she might accidentally do. All right, she agreed. But I have one condition. The king raised an eyebrow. You're making demands of me now? You said I'm under your protection. That makes me a responsibility. She lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of stubborn courage she had left. Which means you have to tell me the truth. About the prophecy. About what the council is really afraid of. About what I am. For a long moment, Selim just stared at her. Then, slowly, he smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. Deal. He extended his hand. Arwen looked at it, remembering the formal court etiquette she'd observed from the shadows. A servant never touched the king's hand. Never. But she wasn't just a servant anymore, was she? She clasped his hand. His palm was warm, calloused from sword work, and the moment their skin touched, something sparked between them. Not magic, exactly. Something deeper. More dangerous. His fingers tightened around hers for just a second longer than necessary. Tomorrow morning, he said, his voice rougher than before. Training grounds. Don't be late. I won't. He released her hand, but his eyes lingered on her face, tracing the curve of her cheek where the guard had struck her. His expression darkened. Ronan. Find out which guard hit her. I want him stripped of his rank. Your Majesty, Arwen protested. That's not necessary. It is to me. The way he said it, fierce and protective and absolute, made something flutter in Arwen's chest. She was in so much trouble. And not just from the council. Arwen didn't sleep that night. How could she? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw green fire dancing behind her eyelids. Felt the power humming beneath her skin, restless and hungry. The North Wing quarters were far nicer than the servants' dormitory she'd lived in for 19 years. There was an actual bed soft, with real pillows, instead of a straw mattress on the floor. A window overlooking the moonlit gardens. A private bathing room with hot water that appeared with the turn of a brass knob. It was luxury. It was a cage. 2 guards stood outside her door. For her protection, Ronan had said. But Arwen knew they were also there to watch her. To make sure the strange girl with ancient power didn't accidentally burn down the palace in her sleep. She stood at the window, watching the moon track across the sky. Her reflection stared back at her. Same dark hair, same thin face, same patched servant's dress. But her eyes looked different. Brighter. Older somehow. "What am I?" she whispered to the glass. The power inside her stirred at the question, coiling through her veins like it wanted to answer. Green light flickered faintly beneath her skin. A knock at the door made her jump. "Miss Thorne." One of the guards. "Someone to see you." "At this hour?" Arwen glanced at the sky. It had to be past midnight. She opened the door to find a woman standing in the hallway, tall, elegant, with silver-streaked black hair and sharp green eyes. She wore the deep blue robes of a palace scholar, and she carried herself with quiet authority. "Arwen Thorne?" the woman asked. "Yes, I'm Instructor Talia. The king sent me." She glanced at the guards. "We need privacy." The guards hesitated, but something in Talia's tone made them step back. She swept into the room, and Arwen closed the door behind her. "The king sent you in the middle of the night? When Selim Nybane says now, you don't wait until morning." Talia set down a leather satchel on the table. "He wants me to assess your abilities before training begins." "May I?" Arwen nodded, though she wasn't sure what she was agreeing to. Talia pulled out several objects from her satchel. Crystals that glowed softly, ancient coins, a small mirror, and what looked like a compass made of bone. She arranged them on the table with practiced precision. "Give me your hand." Arwen extended her palm. Talia took it gently, turning it over to examine the lines. Her eyes widened. "Extraordinary," she breathed. "Your lifeline is fragmented. Like it's been rewritten multiple times." "What does that mean?" "It means someone worked very hard to hide what you are." Talia released her hand and picked up one of the crystals. "This is a resonance stone. It reacts to magical signatures." "Hold it." Arwen took the crystal. The moment her fingers closed around it, the crystal erupted with brilliant green light, so bright Talia had to shield her eyes. "Gods above," Talia whispered. She grabbed a different crystal, this one black. "Try this. It's calibrated for ancient magic." The black crystal did the same thing. And the next one. And the one after that. By the 5th crystal, Talia had stopped testing and started staring. "You're not just powerful," she said finally. "You're primeval. Your magic predates the werewolf bloodlines. Predates the kingdoms themselves." She sat back, shaking her head in wonder. The king was right. "You're Thornborn." There was that word again. "What does that mean?" Talia's expression grew serious. The Thornborn were the first wielders of earth magic. Before wolves, before shifters, before any of the bonded species, there was the circle. They could control the natural world itself. Make forests grow with a thought. Move mountains. Bend living creatures to their will. Arwen's stomach twisted. That sounds terrifying. It was. That's why they were hunted to extinction 3 centuries ago. Talia began packing up her crystals. The wolf clans feared their power. There was a war. Brutal. By the end, every Thornborn had been killed. Or so everyone thought. But I'm here. You're here. Talia smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. Which means someone went to extraordinary lengths to hide you. To suppress your power until the king's blood woke it up. Exactly. Talia stood. Royal blood is powerful. It carries the concentrated essence of the wolf spirit. When you tasted it, it didn't kill you. It recognized you. Called to the magic sleeping in your veins. Arwen thought about the king's wolf, how it had bowed to her. How it had felt like home. Why would his wolf bow to me if my people and his people were enemies? That, Talia said carefully, is the question that's kept me awake for the past 3 hours. She moved toward the door, then paused. "Arwen, the council is terrified of you. And terrified people do dangerous things. Be careful. The king said he'd protect me. Something flickered in Talia's eyes, amusement, maybe, or concern. Yes, he did. Rather emphatically, from what I hear. She tilted her head. Has anyone told you about the claiming? The what? Never mind. You'll find out soon enough. She smiled cryptically. Get some rest. Training with Selim Nibane is intense. You'll need your strength. Then she was gone, leaving Arwen alone with more questions than answers. Dawn came too quickly. Arwen dressed in the training clothes that had been left for her, simple leather pants and a tunic that actually fit, unlike her servant's dress. Someone had even provided boots that didn't have holes in them. She braided her hair back the way she always did for work, muscle memory taking over. But her hands were shaking. Training with the Alpha King. What had she agreed to? The training grounds were in the eastern courtyard, a massive space ringed by stone columns and overlooking the valley below. Warriors were already there, running drills with brutal efficiency. They moved like dancers, all grace and controlled violence. Arwen felt painfully out of place. You came. She turned to find Selim approaching. He'd traded his formal armor for training gear, black pants, and a fitted shirt that showed exactly how much muscle he was hiding under all those royal robes. His white hair was pulled back in a warrior's knot. He looked less like a king and more like a weapon. You told me not to be late, Arwen said, proud that her voice didn't shake. So I did. He studied her with those intense silver eyes. How are you feeling? Terrified. Confused. Like I might accidentally blow something up. A smile ghosted across his face. Good. Fear keeps you careful. Confusion keeps you humble. He gestured toward the center of the grounds. And as for blowing things up, that's what we're here to prevent. The warriors had stopped their drills to watch. Arwen could feel their eyes on her, curiosity and wariness, mixed together. They're wondering if I'm going to hurt you, she said quietly. Let them wonder. Selim's voice carried across the grounds. Everyone, back to drills. Now. The warriors scattered immediately. He led Arwen to a clear space away from the others. The morning sun was just starting to warm the stones, casting long shadows across the ground. First lesson, Selim said. Call your power. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You've been doing it instinctively since yesterday. Now we do it deliberately. He moved behind her, and she felt the heat of him at her back. Close your eyes. Arwen obeyed. Her heart was hammering so loud she was sure he could hear it. The power is part of you, he said softly, his voice close to her ear. Not something foreign. Not something to fear. It's like breathing. You just have to remember how. That's not very helpful. She felt rather than heard his quiet laugh. All right. Try this. Think about yesterday. The moment the blood touched your tongue. What did you feel? Heat. Like lightning. Before that. The instant before the power erupted. What did you feel? Arwen thought back. Past the panic, past the pain. To that single heartbeat where everything had been suspended. Recognition, she whispered. Like something in my blood remembered something in yours. Good. Hold on to that feeling. His hand came to rest lightly on her shoulder, just his fingertips, barely touching. But she felt it like a brand. Now breathe, he said. And call it. Arwen inhaled slowly. Reached inside herself, searching for that humming sensation she'd felt all night. It was there, coiled and waiting. Come, she thought. The power responded instantly. Green light exploded across her skin, racing down her arms in wild patterns. But this time, it didn't hurt. It felt right. Natural. Good, Selim murmured. Now hold it. Don't let it control you. You control it. Easier said than done. The magic wanted to surge out, to crack the stones, to do something. It fought against her will like a wild horse. Breathe, the king reminded her. Arwen focused on his voice. On the steady warmth of his hand on her shoulder. On the feeling of his wolf nearby, calm and patient. Slowly, the green light stabilized. Still glowing, but contained. Excellent. Selim's voice held genuine approval. Open your eyes. She did and gasped. The entire training ground was watching. Warriors stood frozen mid-drill, staring at her glowing form. Even Ronan had stopped to observe, arms crossed and a grin on his scarred face. Ignore them, Selim said. Focus on me. He moved to stand in front of her, and his own power flared to life. Silver light surrounded him, and his spectral wolf materialized, massive and magnificent. Now, the king said, silver eyes meeting her green-lit ones. Show me what you can do. Arwen stared at the Alpha King, his silver wolf towering behind him, and realized she had absolutely no idea what she was doing. Show you what I can do, she repeated. I don't even know what I can do. Then let's find out. Selim's expression was patient but firm. The power wants to manifest. Let it. But direct it. Choose a target. He gestured to a training dummy across the yard, a straw figure dressed in old armor, thoroughly battered from years of sword practice. Send your power toward it. Nothing destructive. Just push. Arwen looked at her glowing hands, then at the dummy. Push. Right. Simple. She extended her arm, focusing on the green light coiling around her fingers. In her mind, she imagined the power flowing forward, gentle as a breeze. The dummy exploded. Not fell over. Not toppled gently. Exploded. Straw erupted in all directions like a geyser. The armor went flying, pieces clattering against the stone columns. One particularly ambitious chunk of breastplate sailed clear over the courtyard wall. Silence. Then someone, it sounded like Ronan, burst out laughing. Arwen's face burned. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. Selim's lips were twitching like he was fighting a smile. That was actually impressive. Terrible control, but impressive raw power. I destroyed your training dummy. I have others. He moved closer, and his wolf padded forward too, sitting beside Arwen like a massive silver guardian. The problem isn't your strength. It's your focus. You're thinking too hard. Trying to force the magic to obey instead of working with it. I don't understand the difference. Selim considered for a moment. Then he held out his hand. May I? Arwen hesitated, remembering the spark that had passed between them yesterday. But she nodded. He took her hand gently, turning it palm up. His fingers were warm and calloused, and gods, why did her heart have to race like this? Magic is alive, he said quietly, tracing the lines of green light on her palm. The touch sent shivers up her arm. It responds to emotion, to intent. When you tried to push it just now, you were anxious. Worried about failing. The magic felt that and reacted with force. So what should I feel? Calm. Certainty. His silver eyes met hers. Trust. The word hung between them, weighted with meaning. Trust the magic? Arwen whispered. Trust yourself. His thumb brushed across her wrist, and she wondered if he could feel her pulse hammering. You're stronger than you know, Arwen Thorne. You survived 19 years hidden in plain sight. Survived the blood decree. Awakened power that terrifies a council of ancient wolves. His expression softened. A destroyed training dummy is nothing. Something warm bloomed in Arwen's chest. Not magic. Something more dangerous. She pulled her hand back carefully. All right. I'll try again. This time, she didn't think about pushing or forcing. She thought about what Selim had said, working with the magic, not against it. Another training dummy stood 20 feet away. Arwen extended her hand, and instead of imagining force, she imagined connection. The green light responded differently, flowing out in gentle tendrils instead of a blast. The magic wrapped around the dummy like vines, glowing softly. Good, Selim murmured. Now lift it. Arwen concentrated. The tendrils tightened, and slowly, so slowly, the dummy rose into the air. She was doing it. Actually controlling the power. Excellent. Now set it down gently. She lowered the dummy back to the ground with exaggerated care. When it touched down without exploding, she couldn't help grinning. I did it. You did. Selim's answering smile was warm, genuine. Again. But faster this time. They trained for hours. Lift, lower, move, hold. Over and over until Arwen's arms ached and sweat dripped down her spine. But with each repetition, the magic grew easier to control. More responsive. Like it was learning to trust her as much as she was learning to trust it. The warriors had gone back to their drills, though she caught them stealing glances. watching the servant girl who glowed green and made the Alpha King smile. By midday, Arwen was exhausted. The green light had faded to a faint shimmer beneath her skin. Enough, Selim said. You've done well. I destroyed 3 more dummies. Only 3. That's progress. He handed her a water skin. Drink. Then we talk. They sat on the edge of the training grounds, overlooking the valley. Up close, Arwen could see the silver threads in his white hair, the faint scars on his hands. Evidence of centuries lived. How old are you really? She asked. 843 years. He said it matter-of-factly, like discussing the weather. Give or take a decade. I stopped counting precisely after the 1st century. Arwen tried to wrap her mind around that. And you've been Alpha King the whole time? Most of it. I won the crown in combat when I was 47. His expression grew distant. Held it ever since. That's a long time to be alone at the top. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, that she understood. Yes, it is. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the sun track across the sky. Then Selim spoke again, his voice quieter. The council will move against you. Soon. Arwen had been expecting this. What will they do? Legally? Nothing. You're under my protection, and I'm still king. But Moravian is clever. He'll find another way. Selim turned to look at her. There's something you should know. About the prophecy. Her stomach tightened. Tell me. 300 years ago, when the Thorborn were hunted, a seer made a prediction. She said the last of the bloodline would return, awakened by royal blood. And when she did, she would either save the kingdom. He paused. Or destroy it. Arwen's mouth went dry. Destroy it. The prophecy was vague. As they always are. His jaw tightened. But the council believes you're a threat. That your power is too dangerous to exist. And what do you believe? Selim studied her for a long moment, his silver eyes searching her face. I believe prophecies are self-fulfilling. Tell someone they're a monster, and eventually they'll become one. Tell someone they're dangerous, and they'll learn to be. He leaned forward slightly. But treat them with respect, give them a choice, help them grow into their power, and they might surprise you. So you're gambling on me. I'm choosing to see what everyone else refuses to. Potential. His voice dropped lower. And something else. What? My wolf has never been wrong. Not in 8 centuries. If he bows to you, there's a reason. I intend to find out what it is. The way he said it, intense and certain and entirely focused on her, made Arwen's breath catch. Selim. Your Majesty. Ronan came jogging across the training grounds, his expression grim. We have a problem. The moment shattered. Selim rose smoothly to his feet. What is it? The High Council has called an emergency session. They're demanding Arwen be placed under formal investigation for treason. Ronan's scarred face twisted with disgust. Moravian claims she used forbidden magic to seduce you into protecting her. Arwen stood, anger flashing through her. That's ridiculous. It's strategy, Selim said coldly. If they can't kill you directly, they'll destroy your reputation. Make you seem dangerous. Manipulative. His hand went to his sword hilt. When is the session? 1 hour. They're invoking the right of council scrutiny. Selim swore, a vicious word in the old tongue that Arwen didn't recognize, but definitely understood the sentiment of. Can they do that? She asked. Unfortunately, yes. It's ancient law. Any member of the royal household can be investigated if 3 council members call for it. His silver eyes blazed with anger. And I have to allow it. If I refuse, they'll claim I'm compromised. That you have indeed manipulated me. So what do we do? Selim turned to her, and his expression shifted from angry king to something more complicated. We go to the council. You answer their questions. And you show them exactly what I see: a woman with power, yes, but also intelligence, strength, and honor. What if they try to kill me again? Then I'll kill them first. He said it so simply, so absolutely, that Arwen believed him. Ronan cleared his throat. There's one other option. The old law includes a protection clause. If someone of royal blood formally vouches for the accused, the council cannot proceed with an investigation. Then I'll vouch for her. It's not that simple. Ronan looked uncomfortable. The vouching has to be significant. A blood oath or... He trailed off. Or what? Arwen demanded. Ronan glanced at Selim, who had gone very still. Or a claiming, the king said quietly. That word again. The one Talia had mentioned. What's a claiming? Arwen asked, though something in her gut already knew she wasn't going to like the answer. Selim met her eyes. It's a formal declaration that you're under my personal protection. Not just as king, but as... He hesitated. As a potential mate. The world tilted slightly. Mate, Arwen repeated. It doesn't have to be romantic, he said quickly. It's a political designation. A promise of protection that cannot be broken without going to war. If I claim you, the council cannot touch you. Ever. But everyone would think. She couldn't finish the sentence. Yes, they would think we're courting. Preparing for a bond. His expression was carefully neutral. I know it's not ideal. But it would keep you safe while we figure out what the council is really planning. Arwen's mind raced. A claiming. Pretending to be the Alpha King's potential mate. It was absurd. Dangerous. Political theater of the highest order. It was also the only way she'd survive the next few hours. She thought about Moravian's hateful eyes. The council's desperation to eliminate her. The prophecy that said she'd either save or destroy the kingdom. She thought about Selim's hand on hers during training. His wolf bowing. The way he looked at her like she was worth protecting. All right, she said. Do it. Claim me. Something flashed in Selim's eyes, relief, maybe, or something more complicated. Are you certain? No. But I'm also not ready to die. Arwen lifted her chin. And if we're going to lie to the council, we might as well make it convincing. Ronan grinned. Oh, I don't think convincing will be a problem. Selim shot him a look that promised violence, but there was something almost fond in it. Then we need to prepare, the king said. The claiming ceremony is formal. There are words to say, rituals to perform. He looked at Arwen, his expression serious. And once it's done, it cannot be undone without mutual consent. Are you ready for that? Arwen thought about everything she'd lost in the past day, her anonymity, her simple life, her safety. And everything she'd gained, power, protection, purpose. Yes, she said firmly. I'm ready. Selim nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then let's go show the council exactly what happens when they try to destroy something I've claimed as mine. The possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver down Arwen's spine. She was definitely in trouble. And the worst part? She wasn't entirely sure she minded. The claiming ceremony required specific attire. Arwen stood in her quarters, staring at the dress that had been delivered by a team of nervous attendants. It was beautiful, deep forest green silk that shimmered like her magic, with silver embroidery that caught the light. The neckline was modest but elegant, and the sleeves were long and fitted. It was a dress for a queen. I can't wear this, she said to the head attendant, an older woman named Mira who'd been kind despite Arwen's servant origins. You must, Miss Thorne. The ceremony is formal. And... Mira smiled gently. The king chose it himself. Had it commissioned last night after he decided to protect you. He'd chosen it. Something about that made Arwen's chest feel tight. Help me into it, then. The dress fit perfectly, which shouldn't have been surprising given that Selim had seen her every day for 19 years, even if he'd never truly looked before. The silk felt foreign against her skin. She was used to rough homespun, not fabric that whispered with every movement. Mira braided her hair with silver thread, leaving some strands loose to frame her face. No cosmetics, Arwen had refused, but Mira rubbed rose oil on her wrists and throat. For luck, the attendant said softly. Though I don't think you'll need it. The way His Majesty looks at you. He's just protecting me. It's political. Myra's smile was knowing. If you say so, dear. A knock at the door. Ronan's voice, it's time. Arwen took a deep breath and stepped into the hallway. Ronan's eyes widened. Gods. The king is going to, he stopped himself. You look appropriate for the ceremony. That's a terrible recovery. I'm a warrior, not a diplomat. He offered his arm. Come on. Before Moravian has an aneurysm waiting. They walked through the palace corridors, and Arwen tried not to notice how people stopped to stare. Servants whispered behind their hands. Courtiers watched with calculating eyes. Everyone was wondering the same thing. How had a nobody servant girl caught the Alpha King's attention? The council chamber was in the heart of the palace, a circular room with a domed ceiling painted with constellations. The High Council sat in elevated chairs around the perimeter, their robes pristine, their faces various shades of hostile. Moravian sat at the highest point, his expression venomous. And in the center of the room, standing beside a carved stone altar, was Selim. Arwen's breath caught. He wore formal ceremonial armor, black and silver, etched with runes that glowed faintly green. His white hair was unbound, falling past his shoulders like a waterfall of moonlight. A crown of dark metal and wolf bones rested on his head. He looked every inch the ancient, powerful king he was. His silver eyes found hers across the room, and something in his expression softened. "Arwen," he said, and the way he spoke her name made it sound like something precious. She walked toward him, aware of every eye tracking her movement. When she reached the altar, Selim extended his hand. She took it. "Are you ready?" he murmured, quiet enough that only she could hear. "No, but let's do it anyway." His lips quirked. "That's becoming your motto." "Your Majesty," Moravian's voice rang out. "Before you proceed with this unprecedented action, the Council wishes to register our formal objection." Selim didn't look away from Arwen. "Noted. And overruled. But I am Alpha King. The law is clear. I may claim whom I choose, and no council can prevent it." Now he turned, and his voice dropped to something dangerous. "Unless you wish to challenge my right to rule?" Silence. Moravian's jaw worked, but he said nothing. Challenging the king meant combat to the death. And Selim Nightbane had held his crown for 8 centuries for a reason. "Then we proceed," Selim said. He turned back to Arwen, still holding her hand. His wolf materialized behind him, massive and silver, watching with patient eyes. "The claiming is a sacred bond," Selim began, his voice carrying through the chamber. "Older than law, older than kingdoms. It is a promise of protection, of loyalty, of partnership." He squeezed her hand gently. "Arwen Thorn. I, Selim Nightbane, Alpha King of the 5 territories, do hereby claim you as mine to protect, mine to defend, mine to honor. Let any who threaten you answer to me. Let any who harm you face my wrath. From this moment until you release me from this bond, I am yours as you are mine." The formal words hung in the air, weighted with magic. Now it was Arwen's turn. She'd been coached by Ronan on what to say, but standing here, looking into Selim's ancient silver eyes, the rehearsed words fled her mind. Instead, she spoke from instinct. "I accept your claim, Selim Nightbane. I accept your protection, your loyalty, your partnership." She took a breath. "And I promise to be worthy of it. To honor your trust. To stand beside you, not behind you. To be your equal in this bond, not your burden." Something flashed in his eyes, surprise, and something warmer. "That's not the traditional wording," someone muttered from the council. "I like it better," Selim said. He released her hand and drew a small blade from his belt. The metal gleamed with runes. "The blood seal," he said quietly to Arwen. "It won't hurt much." He drew the blade across his palm, a shallow cut that welled with dark blood. Then he offered her the knife. Arwen steadied her hand and made a matching cut. The pain was sharp but brief. Selim pressed his bleeding palm to hers. The moment their blood touched, power exploded through the room. Silver and green light erupted from their joined hands, swirling together in patterns that seemed almost alive. The magic spiraled upward, dancing across the domed ceiling, painting the stone with their combined essence. Arwen gasped as she felt it, his wolf, ancient and powerful, reaching toward her magic. And her magic reaching back, recognizing something fundamental. "Mine," the wolf seemed to say. "Yes," her magic answered. The light pulsed brighter, and Arwen heard someone in the council cry out in alarm. But she couldn't look away from Selim. His eyes had gone pure silver, glowing with wolf magic, and she knew hers must be glowing green. Extraordinary, he breathed. The magic settled slowly, sinking back into their skin. But Arwen could still feel it, a connection between them now, delicate but real. She could sense his wolf, calm and satisfied. Could feel the echo of his heartbeat, steady and strong. "It's done," Selim announced, though he still held her hand. "Arwen Thorne is claimed. Anyone who moves against her moves against me." His eyes swept the council, daring them to object. Moravian stood, his face pale with fury. "This is madness. She's bewitched you." "The blood seal doesn't lie," Ronan called out. "If she'd bewitched him, the magic wouldn't have accepted the bond. It would have rejected her. She's using Thornborn magic. Ancient, forbidden." "Forbidden by whom?" Selim's voice was ice. "By you? By a council that murdered her entire bloodline out of fear." He stepped forward, and even the bravest council members shrank back. The only ones who should fear Arwen Thorne are those who mean her harm. Anyone else has nothing to worry about. He turned to Arwen, and his expression softened. "Come. We're done here." Still holding her hand, he led her out of the council chamber. The connection between them hummed with each step. They didn't speak until they reached the king's private study, a room Arwen had cleaned 100 times, but never truly seen. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, maps spread across a massive desk, weapons displayed on the walls. A fireplace large enough to stand in. It smelled like him. Pine and smoke and winter storms. Selim released her hand, and Arwen immediately missed the contact. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I can feel your wolf." "I know. I can feel your magic." He moved to pour wine from a crystal decanter. "The blood seal creates a bond. Not as strong as a true mate bond, but significant. You'll be able to sense me, my emotions, my general location. And I'll sense you." "That seems invasive." "It can be. But it also means I'll know if you're in danger. And you'll know if I need you." He handed her a glass. "The bond will fade if we choose to break it. Or it will strengthen if..." He trailed off. "If we become actual mates," Arwen finished. "Yes." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. "Thank you," Arwen said finally. "For protecting me. For claiming me, even though it's probably political suicide." Selim's laugh was short and bitter. "The council has been trying to control me for centuries. Let them rage. They can't actually remove me without killing me, and none of them are strong enough to try. Moravian seems willing. Moravian is desperate. Which makes him dangerous." Selim set down his wine untouched. "Arwen, there's something you should know about him. About why he hates the Thornborn so much." "Tell me." 300 years ago, during the war, Moravian's grandfather was killed by a Thornborn mage. Torn apart by living vines in front of his entire pack. Selim's expression was grim. Moravian inherited that hatred. He spent his entire life ensuring no Thornborn could ever rise again. And now I'm here. Living proof that he failed. Exactly. Which means he'll do anything to eliminate you." Selim moved closer. "The claiming protects you legally, but Moravian will look for loopholes. Accidents. Ways to make your death look natural." Fear curled in Arwen's stomach. "So what do I do?" "You stay close to me. You train until you can defend yourself. And you trust that I meant every word of that claiming vow." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "I will not let them hurt you, Arwen." The touch sent electricity through her skin. His palm was warm, his gaze intense. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much? You barely know me. My wolf knows you." He recognized something the moment your power awakened. "And I've learned to trust his instincts more than my own thoughts." His thumb traced her jawline, a feather-light touch that made her shiver. "Besides, I've watched you for 19 years. Seen you work yourself to exhaustion cleaning floors no one appreciates. Seen you share your meals with the younger servants. Seen you stand up to that bastard head cook when he tried to beat a child for spilling soup." Arwen blinked. "You saw that. I see everything in my palace. I just didn't realize I was seeing you until yesterday." His expression turned rueful. "My wolf has been restless for months. Now I know why. He was waiting for you to awaken." "That sounds like fate." "I don't believe in fate. I believe in choice." His hand slipped away from her face, and she mourned the loss. Which is why I'm giving you one. Stay here, let me protect you, train with me. Or leave. I'll give you safe passage to any territory you choose, enough gold to start over. You'd let me go? Even after the claiming? The claiming is a protection, not a cage. If you want your freedom, I'll give it to you. His silver eyes held hers. But I'm hoping you'll stay. Arwen thought about running. Starting over somewhere the council couldn't reach her. Living a quiet life away from ancient prophecies and political intrigue. Then she thought about the connection humming between them. The way his wolf had bowed. The power singing in her veins that still needed to be understood. And she thought about how Selim Nibane, Alpha King of the 5 territories, 800 years old and powerful enough to level mountains, was standing in front of her offering her a choice instead of a command. I'll stay, she said. But not just because you're protecting me. Then why? Because you're the first person who's ever looked at me and seen potential instead of a servant. Who's offered me choice instead of orders. She smiled slightly. And because your wolf seems to like me, and I have a feeling disappointing him would be a terrible idea. Selim laughed, a real laugh that transformed his entire face. You're not wrong. He's been insufferably smug since yesterday. As if summoned, the spectral wolf materialized, silver and massive. It padded over to Arwen and pressed its head against her side. See? Selim said, shaking his head in mock exasperation. Shameless. Arwen ran her fingers through the wolf's spectral fur. It was warm and oddly solid despite being made of magic. I like him too. Good. Because he's declaring that you're pack now. Which means... Selim hesitated. You should know that wolves are possessive. Protective. Now that we're bonded, even artificially, my instincts are going to be heightened. If anyone threatens you, I'm going to want to tear them apart. Is that a warning? It's a promise. The intensity in his voice made her pulse quicken. Well then, Arwen said, trying to sound braver than she felt. I guess we're in this together. Together, Selim agreed. The words settled between them, weighted with possibility. Outside the study windows, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. And in the council chambers across the palace, Moravian was undoubtedly plotting their destruction. But right now, in this moment, Arwen felt safer than she had in her entire life. Even if that safety came wrapped in the form of an ancient, dangerous king who looked at her like she was something precious. Especially because of that. The attack came 3 days later. Arwen had fallen into a routine, mornings training with Selim, afternoons studying with Talia, evenings dining in the king's private quarters. The bond between them had settled into something comfortable. She could sense him throughout the day, a steady presence at the back of her mind. Calm when he was in council meetings. Focused during his own training. Occasionally amused when Ronan said something particularly ridiculous. It was strange. Intimate. And increasingly difficult to remember it was supposed to be temporary. She was in the library with Talia, studying ancient texts about Thornborn magic, when the bond suddenly screamed. Pain. Rage. Battle. Arwen shot to her feet, the book tumbling from her lap. Selim. What's wrong? Talia asked, alarmed. He's fighting. Arwen pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the echo of his fury through the bond. I have to go. She ran. Through corridors, downstairs, following the pull of the connection. Guards called after her, but she ignored them, green light already sparking across her skin as her magic responded to her panic. The bond led her to the eastern courtyard. To the training grounds where she'd first learned to control her power. What she found made her blood run cold. Selim was surrounded. Not by council members or guards, but by creatures. Shadow beasts formed from dark magic and malice, with eyes like burning coals and claws that dripped poison. There were at least a dozen of them, and they moved with coordinated precision. An assassination attempt. Selim fought like the ancient warrior. He was silver light blazing, his wolf tearing through shadow flesh with fang and claw. But there were too many. One of the beasts had already gotten through his defense, leaving a bleeding gash across his shoulder. Arwen didn't think. Didn't hesitate. She called her power and unleashed it. Green fire erupted from her hands in a wave of pure fury. It crashed into the nearest shadow beast, and instead of simply destroying it, her magic did something she'd never seen before. It unmade it. The creature didn't explode or dissolve. It simply ceased to exist, as if the universe decided it had never been there at all. Arwen. Selim's voice, sharp with alarm. Get back. Not a chance. She ran forward, magic blazing around her like a storm. Another shadow beast lunged at her, claws extended. Arwen threw up her hand and vines erupted from the stone, actual living vines, thick and thorned and angry. They wrapped around the creature and squeezed until it burst into ash. Holy gods! She'd just made plants grow from stone. No time to process that. 3 more beasts were charging. Arwen spread her arms and let instinct guide her. The green fire spiraled out in tendrils, each one finding a target. Where her magic touched, shadow burned away like mist in sunlight. Beside her, Selim's wolf roared approval. Together, they fought. Arwen had no training in combat, but her magic seemed to know what to do. It moved with her, protected her, struck at anything that threatened. And through the bond, she could feel Selim's presence, guiding her, supporting her, fighting in perfect synchronization, even though they'd never done this before. The last shadow beast fell with a shriek that rattled Arwen's bones. Silence. She stood in the center of the courtyard, breathing hard, green light still crackling around her fingers. The ground was scorched. Vines had burst through stone in a dozen places. The air smelled of smoke and magic. Arwen. Selim was beside her suddenly, his hands on her shoulders. Are you hurt? No. You are. She touched the wound on his shoulder, and he flinched. This needs. Her magic surged before she could finish the thought. Green light flowed from her fingertips into his wound, and she watched in amazement as the torn flesh began to knit itself back together. You can heal, Selim breathed. Apparently. Arwen kept her hands on his shoulder until the wound closed completely, leaving only a faint scar. There. Good as new. He caught her wrists gently. That was incredibly reckless. You're welcome. I'm serious. You could have been killed. So could you. Arwen pulled back, anger flaring. I felt you through the bond. Felt you in pain, in danger. What was I supposed to do? Sit in the library and hope you survived. Yes, you were safe there. I don't want to be safe while you die. The words burst out of her, raw and honest. The claiming goes both ways, remember? You protect me, I protect you. That was the deal. Selim stared at her, his silver eyes wide. Then, without warning, he pulled her into his arms. The embrace was fierce, desperate. His face pressed into her hair, and she felt him shaking slightly. Don't do that again, he murmured against her temple. Don't risk yourself for me. Can't promise that. But she wrapped her arms around him, holding just as tightly. Your wolf would be disappointed if I let something happen to you. She felt his laugh rumble through his chest. My wolf would be devastated. So would I. They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other while the courtyard smoked around them. Arwen could feel his heartbeat against her cheek, still racing from battle. Could smell smoke and blood and that pine winter scent that was purely him. This was dangerous. Not the shadow beasts. This. The way her heart clenched when he was hurt. The way his arms felt like home. The way she'd run toward danger without thinking because the bond told her he needed her. This was supposed to be political. Temporary. Safe. It was becoming none of those things. Selim, she started. Your Majesty. Guards poured into the courtyard, weapons drawn. Ronan was at the front, his scarred face pale. Selim released Arwen reluctantly. Secure the area. I want to know how those creatures got past the palace wards. Already on it. Ronan was studying the scorch marks with grim fascination. These were summoned. Dark magic sophisticated. Someone inside the palace called them. Moravian, Arwen said. Most likely. But we'll need proof. Ronan glanced at Arwen. That was impressive magic, by the way. I've never seen Thornborn power in action before. The stories don't do it justice. Thanks, I think. More guards arrived, along with Talia, who immediately began fussing over both of them despite their protests. The courtyard became a chaos of activity, guards searching for evidence, scholars examining the remains of the shadow beasts, healers checking for injuries. Through it all, Selim stayed close to Arwen. Not touching, but near enough that she could feel his presence. Protective. Possessive. When they finally made it back to his study, the sun was setting. "We need to talk about what happened," Selim said, pouring them both wine with hands that were steadier than they should be. "You mean the fact that I can apparently grow plants from stone and heal wounds? That? And the fact that you ran into battle with no training and survived through pure instinct." He handed her a glass. "Your power is growing. Faster than I expected." Arwen sipped the wine, trying to process everything. "Talia said Thor-born magic responds to emotion. When I felt you in danger through the bond, I just reacted. Your magic protected me. Protected us both." Selim set down his glass and moved closer. "Arwen, I need you to understand something. That bond we created? It's not as artificial as I made it sound." Her heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "Blood seals are supposed to be formal. Political. A connection, yes, but not this." He gestured between them. "I can feel everything you feel. Your fear when I was hurt. Your relief when I survived. Your anger at the council." His voice dropped. "Your confusion about what's happening between us." Arwen's face heated. "You can feel that? Just as you can feel that I'm terrified of losing you. That I've been fighting the urge to keep you locked in the safest room in the palace. That my wolf considers you." He stopped himself. "Considers me what?" "His." The word came out rough. Not claimed. Not protected. His. Which in wolf terms means mate, Arwen whispered. Selim's jaw tightened. "I know that's not what you signed up for. The claiming was supposed to be protection, not this. If you want to break the bond, I'll understand." Arwen set down her wine glass with shaking hands. Her mind was racing. The bond had been growing stronger every day, true. And she'd been feeling things she shouldn't, longing when he was away, joy when he smiled, fear that was too sharp when he was in danger. But a mate bond? That was permanent. Sacred. Life-altering. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "I want to be selfish." His silver eyes met hers, burning with intensity. "I want to keep you. Court you properly. See where this connection leads without the council's interference or ancient prophecies hanging over us." He took a breath. "But I also want you to have a choice. Real choice. Not something forced by magic or circumstance. And if I choose you, then I'll spend every day proving you made the right decision." The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. Arwen thought about the past few days. The way he'd made her laugh during training. The way he listened when she talked about her childhood. The way his wolf would curl around her during study sessions, a massive silver guardian who purred when she scratched behind his ears. She thought about how safe she felt with him. How seen. How he'd offered her power and partnership instead of protection and pity. "I'm a servant girl," she said. "A nobody who was left at the palace gates. I have no family, no status, no experience with politics or courts. If I stay, if we..." She gestured helplessly. "Your people will hate me. The council already wants me dead. I'll bring you nothing but problems." "You're wrong." Selim closed the distance between them, his hands cupping her face with infinite gentleness. "You bring me hope. Purpose. A connection I've been searching 800 years to find." His thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. "And you're not a nobody, Arwen Thorn. You're the last of an ancient bloodline. Powerful enough to make kingdoms kneel. Brave enough to run into battle for someone you barely know." His voice softened. "Beautiful enough to make an old wolf remember what it feels like to want something for himself instead of his crown." "That's a lot of pressure," Arwen whispered, but she was smiling. "Then let me help you carry it." He leaned his forehead against hers. "Stay. Not because of the claiming or the prophecy or because you're afraid. Stay because you want to see what we could be together." Arwen closed her eyes, feeling the bond humming between them. Feeling his heartbeat syncing with hers. Feeling the rightness of his hands on her face, his breath against her lips. "All right," she said. "I'll stay. But if your wolf gets too possessive, I'm buying him a chew toy. Selim's laugh was warm and genuine. Deal. He pulled back just enough to look at her, his expression soft with something that might have been love or might have been the beginning of it. Now, he said, his tone shifting to business. We need to deal with Moravian. He tried to have us both killed today. That's treason. Even the council can't protect him from that. What will you do? Call a formal tribunal. Present evidence. Let him stand trial. Selim's eyes hardened. And if he's found guilty, the penalty for attempted regicide is death. A knock at the door interrupted them. Ronan entered without waiting for permission, his expression urgent. We found something. You need to see this. They followed him to the council chambers, where Talia was waiting with several guards. On the table before them lay a black stone carved with symbols that made Arwen's skin crawl. Summoning stone, Talia explained. Hidden in Moravian's quarters. The magic signature matches the shadow beasts. She looked up, her green eyes serious. He's been planning this for weeks. Maybe longer. Then we have our proof, Selim said coldly. Guards. Arrest Counselor Moravian. Charge him with treason and attempted assassination of the crown. Already done, Your Majesty. Ronan grinned. He's in the dungeons as we speak. Singing like a drunk bard about his innocence. Good. The tribunal convenes tomorrow at dawn. Selim turned to Arwen. You'll need to testify. Are you ready for that? To help send the man who tried to kill us both to his death? Yes. I'm ready. Something fierce and proud flashed in Selim's eyes. Tomorrow, they would face the council. Face Moravian's lies and the prophecy's weight. But tonight, standing in the chamber where she'd been claimed just days ago, Arwen felt the bond between them pulse with certainty. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And that, she was learning, made all the difference. The tribunal convened at dawn in the Grand Hall, a space larger than the council chambers, with towering columns and ancient tapestries depicting the kingdom's history. Every seat was filled. Nobles, warriors, merchants, even common folk who'd been granted entry. Everyone wanted to witness the trial of Counselor Moravian. Arwen sat beside Selim's throne, in a chair that had been placed there specifically for her. A statement. She wore another green dress, this one simpler but still elegant, and her hair was braided with silver again. Mira had insisted. You look like a queen, the attendant had said that morning. Arwen wasn't sure how she felt about that. The bond hummed steadily between her and Selim. She could feel his controlled fury, his determination to see justice done. His wolf paced restlessly in the back of his mind. Moravian was brought in chains, humiliating for a council member, but Selim had been clear. Traitors got no special treatment. The counselor looked smaller somehow. Diminished. His robes were wrinkled, his hair unkempt. But his eyes still burned with hatred when they landed on Arwen. Counselor Moravian, Selim began, his voice carrying through the hall. You stand accused of treason. Of summoning dark magic within palace walls. Of attempting to assassinate both myself and Lady Arwen Thorne, who is under my direct protection. He leaned forward. How do you answer these charges? Lies. Moravian's voice was hoarse, but defiant. All lies fabricated by that creature you've allowed into your bed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Arwen felt Selim's rage spike through the bond, but his expression remained cold. Mind your tongue, counselor. Or I'll have it removed. She's bewitched you. Can't you see? The Thorborn are manipulators, corruptors. Present your evidence, Selim interrupted. Or be silent. Ronan stepped forward, carrying the black summoning stone they'd found. This was discovered in Moravian's private quarters. The magical signature matches the shadow beasts that attacked His Majesty and Lady Arwen yesterday. That was planted. Moravian snarled. By whom? Talia joined Ronan, her scholar's robes pristine. Your quarters are warded against intrusion. Only you can enter freely. Unless you're suggesting His Majesty broke into your rooms to plant evidence. Murmurs from the crowd. The logic was sound. Moravian's face reddened. The girl, she could have done it. Thorborn magic can bypass wards. Can it? Selim asked mildly. Arwen, can your magic bypass the palace wards? All eyes turned to her. Arwen stood, grateful her voice didn't shake. I don't know. I've only had my power for a few days. I'm still learning what I can do. She looked directly at Moravian. But I didn't plant that stone. I have no reason to frame you when you've already tried to kill me twice. Twice, someone in the crowd called out. The blood decree, Arwen said. That was the first attempt. You invoked ancient law, hoping the king's blood would kill me. When it awakened my power instead, you tried assassination. She admits she has power. Moravian pointed with his chained hands. Power that should not exist. The Thornborn were eliminated for good reason. They were murdered. Arwen cut him off, surprised by the steel in her own voice. Because your ancestors feared them. Because having someone more powerful than you terrified you so much you committed genocide. She stepped down from the dais, moving closer to him. Green light flickered across her skin. And now you're so consumed by that same fear that you'd betray your own king to eliminate me. I serve the kingdom. You're a threat to everything we've built. You serve yourself. Selim stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. You've manipulated the council for decades, Moravian. I've tolerated it because you were effective. But the moment you moved against me, against someone under my protection, you crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. He descended the throne steps with predatory grace. His wolf materialized, silver and massive, its eyes fixed on Moravian with clear judgment. You claim Arwen is dangerous, Selim said. Yet she's done nothing but defend herself and those she cares about. You, on the other hand, have plotted murder, summoned dark magic, and betrayed your oath to the crown. He stopped directly in front of the counselor. Who is the real threat here? Silence. Then, from the crowd, a voice. The counselor. Another joined in. He's a traitor. More voices, building to a chorus. The people had made their judgment. Moravian's face went ashen. No. You don't understand. The prophecy. She'll destroy everything. What prophecy? Arwen demanded. Everyone keeps mentioning it, but no one will tell me what it actually says. Talia stepped forward. I can answer that. I've been researching it since Lady Arwen's awakening. She pulled out an ancient scroll, its edges yellowed with age. The prophecy states, when royal blood awakens the last Thornborn, the kingdom will be remade. Old powers will fall, new bonds will rise, and the choice between salvation and destruction rests with the one who is hidden. See, Moravian shrieked. Destruction. She'll bring destruction. Or salvation, Ronan pointed out. Prophecies tend to be self-fulfilling. You treat her like a monster, she becomes one. You treat her like an ally. He shrugged. Arwen looked at the scroll, at the ancient words that had shaped so much fear and hatred. It says the choice is mine. Salvation or destruction. Yes, Talia confirmed. Then I choose salvation. Arwen turned to face the assembled crowd. I never asked for this power. Never wanted to be the center of prophecies or political schemes. I just wanted to live quietly, do my work, survive. Her voice grew stronger. But if I have power now, I'll use it to protect people. To help, not harm. To build, not destroy. She looked at Selim. To stand beside a king who gave me a choice when he could have given me orders. Something fierce and proud blazed in his silver eyes. The prophecy is fulfilled, Talia said quietly. She's made her choice. The kingdom is remade, not through destruction, but through the bond between Thornborn and Wolf. She smiled. Old powers fall, like Moravian's corruption. New bonds rise, like the claiming. The girl who is hidden has chosen salvation. Moravian sagged in his chains. No, this can't be. It is. Selim's voice was final. The tribunal has heard the evidence. Seen the truth. Moravian, you are found guilty of treason, attempted regicide, and the practice of forbidden dark magic. He paused. The penalty is death. To be carried out at sunset. Guards moved forward to drag Moravian away. He struggled, still screaming about Thornborn corruption and prophecies, but his words fell on deaf ears. The crowd erupted into cheers. Selim raised his hand for silence. When the hall quieted, he spoke again. Let this be a lesson. I don't care about bloodlines or ancient feuds. I care about loyalty, honor, and service to the kingdom. His eyes swept the room. Arwen Thorne has proven herself worthy of my trust. Of my claim. Anyone who disagrees is welcome to challenge me directly. No one moved. Good. He extended his hand to Arwen. Come. We're done here. She took his hand, and together they walked from the grand hall. Behind them, the crowd's cheers followed. They didn't speak until they reached the palace gardens, a quiet space filled with flowering trees and stone benches. The morning sun was warm on Arwen's skin. Are you all right? Selim asked. I just helped sentence a man to death. He tried to kill us both. Multiple times. I know. It's just. Arwen sat on a bench, suddenly exhausted. Everything's happening so fast. A week ago I was cleaning floors. Now I'm making prophecy choices and attending trials and apparently deciding the fate of kingdoms. Selim sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. It's overwhelming. That's an understatement. His wolf materialized, lying down at their feet with a contented huff. Arwen reached down absently to scratch behind his ears. What happens now? She asked. The prophecy is fulfilled. Moravian will be executed. The council knows they can't touch me. So what's next? Now, Selim said slowly, we figure out what we want. Not what prophecies demand or councils expect. Just us. Arwen looked at him, really looked. At the silver eyes that had seen centuries. At the warrior's scars and the king's bearing. At the gentleness he showed only when they were alone. I'm still figuring out my power, she said. Learning what it means to be Thornborn. I'll probably blow things up accidentally for a while. I have excellent stonemasons. And I'm terrible at politics. You swayed an entire tribunal with one speech. You're better than you think. I don't know how to be a queen. Selim turned to face her fully, taking both her hands. Who said anything about being a queen? Everyone's assuming. Let them assume. His thumbs traced circles on her palms. Arwen, I've been king for 800 years. I know duty, obligation, expectation. But I also know this. I don't want a political partner. I don't want someone who fits the role perfectly. I want you. The woman who ran into battle with no training because she felt me in danger. Who makes my wolf purr like a kitten. Who destroys training dummies and heals wounds and chooses salvation even when destruction would be easier. Her heart was pounding. That's still a lot of pressure. Then we'll take it slow. Court properly. Let the bond grow naturally instead of forcing it. He smiled. Besides, my wolf has decided you're his, which means you're stuck with me whether you like it or not. I could break the claiming. You could. But you won't. Confident, aren't you? I've seen how you look at me when you think I'm not watching. His smile turned almost shy. You feel it too. This connection. This rightness. Arwen couldn't deny it. The bond hummed between them, warm and certain. And when she looked at Selim Nibane, ancient king, powerful warrior, lonely wolf, she saw someone who understood her. Who valued her. Who made her want to be brave. All right, she said. We'll try. Court properly. See where this goes. But I have conditions. Name them. First, I keep training. I want to control my power, defend myself. No hiding behind you while you fight my battles. Agreed. I prefer fighting beside you anyway. Second, I get to keep my quarters in the north wing. At least until. She felt her face heat. Until we're sure this is real and not just magical bond confusion. Done. Though my wolf is going to complain about not having you nearby. He'll survive. Arwen took a breath. And third, when Moravian is executed, I want to be there. Selim's expression grew serious. Are you certain? Executions aren't. I'm certain. He tried to kill me because of what I am. Because he feared my power so much he betrayed his king. I need to see it end. To know it's really over. Then I'll stand with you. Thank you. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching butterflies dance among the flowers. Selim's wolf dozed at their feet, occasionally making small, contented sounds. The bond between them pulsed steadily, a reminder that they were connected now in ways neither had anticipated. Can I ask you something? Arwen said finally. Anything. In 800 years, have you ever felt like this before? This connection. Selim was quiet for a long moment. No. I've had lovers. Brief companionships. Even a formal betrothal once, centuries ago, though she died before we could bond. His hand found hers again. But this feels different. Like my wolf was waiting. Like I was waiting, even though I didn't know what for. And you think I'm what you were waiting for? I think you're what I was hoping for. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. A partner. An equal. Someone who challenges me and supports me and isn't afraid to tell me when I'm being an idiot. You're being an idiot right now, Arwen said, but she was smiling. See? Perfect. His laugh was warm and genuine, and Arwen found herself leaning into him, resting her head on his shoulder. He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. We're going to face more challenges, he murmured against her hair. The council will adjust, but there will be others who fear you. Who remember the old wars and old hatreds. I know. And there will be days when the prophecy's weight feels too heavy. When controlling your power seems impossible. When you miss the simplicity of scrubbing floors. Probably. But I'll be here. Every step. Every struggle. He tightened his arm around her. You're not alone anymore, Arwen. She closed her eyes, feeling the truth of his words through the bond. For 19 years she'd been alone, an orphan, a servant, invisible and unimportant. Now she was claimed, powerful, visible to everyone. But more than that, she was seen. Truly seen. By a king who valued her choices. By a wolf who recognized her soul. By a man who was willing to wait for her heart. Neither are you, she whispered. Not anymore. Sunset came too quickly. The execution was held in the central courtyard, witnessed by the remaining council members and representatives from each territory. Moravian was brought out, his chains removed for this final moment. He looked small. Broken. Selim gave him one last chance. Do you have any final words? Moravian's eyes found Arwen. For a moment, the hatred flickered and something else showed through: fear, regret, the weight of choices that couldn't be unmade. The Thornborn destroyed my family, he said quietly. I thought I was protecting the kingdom from the same fate. I see now that I became the very monster I feared. He looked at Selim. I betrayed you, your majesty. I betrayed the crown. For that, I am sorry. It wasn't enough. Could never be enough. But it was something. Selim nodded to the executioner. Arwen didn't look away. She watched as the blade fell, as Moravian's life ended, as the ghost of ancient hatred finally died with him. She expected to feel triumph. Or relief. Or satisfaction. Instead, she felt tired. And sad for the waste of it all. Selim's hand found hers, grounding her. It's done, he murmured. Yes. They turned away from the courtyard together. Behind them, the crowd dispersed quietly. There would be no celebration. Just the grim acknowledgement that justice had been served. That night, Arwen stood at her window in the north wing, looking out at the gardens where she and Selim had talked that morning. The bond hummed softly, telling her he was in his study, working through the political aftermath of the trial. She could go to him. The bond would guide her. But he'd given her space, respected her need for quarters of her own. Still, she found herself wanting his presence. His quiet strength. His wolf's comforting weight. Before she could talk herself out of it, she left her rooms and made her way through the palace. The guards nodded respectfully. She was Lady Arwen now, claimed by the king. No one questioned her movements. She knocked on the study door. Come in. Selim looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his face when he saw her. Arwen. Is everything all right? Yes. She hesitated. I didn't want to be alone tonight. If that's all right. His expression softened. Of course it's all right. He stood and moved to the sitting area, gesturing to the couch. His wolf was already there, and it perked up when Arwen entered, tail wagging. Shameless, Selim muttered at his wolf, but there was affection in his voice. Arwen sat, and the wolf immediately rested its massive head in her lap. She scratched behind its ears absently. How are you feeling? Selim asked, settling beside her. Strange. Sad. Relieved. She looked at him. Is it wrong that I feel sorry for Moravian? Even after everything. No. It means you have compassion. That you understand that fear and hatred can corrupt even well-intentioned people. He reached over, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. It's one of the things I admire about you. You admire me? Constantly. Embarrassingly often, according to Ronan. Arwen laughed, some of the heaviness lifting. What else does Ronan say? That I'm completely besotted. That my wolf is insufferable. That I smile more in the past week than I have in the past decade. His silver eyes gleamed with warmth. He's not wrong about any of it. Besotted, Completely. He said it without hesitation. I tried to tell myself it was just the bond. Just proximity. Just the novelty of someone who wasn't afraid of me. His hand cupped her face. But it's not. It's you. Your strength. Your kindness. Your terrible aim when throwing magic at training dummies. Hey, I've gotten better. You destroyed the entire western fence yesterday. That fence was ugly anyway. He laughed, and the sound warmed her from the inside out. They sat together in comfortable silence, his wolf dozing in her lap, the fire crackling softly. Through the window, stars began to emerge. Arwen, Selim said quietly. I need you to know something. Whatever happens, whether this bond grows into something permanent or whether you decide it's not what you want, I'll always be grateful I met you. That I got to see you become who you were meant to be. She looked at him, at the ancient king who'd been lonely for so long he'd forgotten what hope felt like. I'm not going anywhere, she said firmly. You're stuck with me. You and your shameless wolf. Good. He leaned his forehead against hers. Because I've decided I don't want to rule alone anymore. I want a partner. An equal. Someone who'll call me an idiot when I need to hear it. You're still being an idiot, Arwen whispered. See? Perfect. And when he kissed her, gentle and certain and full of promise, Arwen felt the bond between them flare bright as starlight. The servant girl who'd been hidden for 19 years had found where she belonged. In a palace of wolves and ancient magic. Beside a king who saw her not as a prophecy or a threat, but as herself. With power in her veins and love in her heart. And finally, she was home. The end.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed the story, you will surely love the next one. It's crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out.